everybody. I hope that you enjoyed the Pickleball Slam 2 last Sunday on ESPN. Where else are you going to have 4 Wimbledon champions on the pickleball court? It was very exciting, and we were so anticipating what shots we were going to see and how they were going to react and how old they looked or how young they looked or if they were fit. And it was very surprising. It was very positive. We really had a fun time watching.
Well, who played, Carrie? In case
who played? Well, Mr. John McEnroe, Johnny Mac himself at 64 years old. And then there was Andre Agassi, married to Steffi Graf, but Maria Sharapova, the youngster, at 36 years old. And then we had some guest appearances by Jack Sock, former #1 in the world in doubles, and now has turned pickleball pro. And then we also had James Blake. So it was star-studded, and they showed some paddle skills for sure.
Well, because of the time crunch, they don't know how long each of these matches are going to run. They did rally scoring, meaning that every point counted no matter what side of the court you were on. And so a right court player would stay on the right-hand court, serving and receiving for the entire match, unless they were running around. That's different than the regular pickleball scoring. So I'm looking forward to the day that they actually do pickleball scoring. Unless pickleball goes the way of rally scoring, I think there's a different strategy altogether. This felt more like a tennis match because they're used to you win or lose a point after every point.
And I thought that being said, the service returns were fairly predictable. Most of them wanted their forehands, and all of the above just loved their forehands on the tennis court. So they were long swings, but deep returns. And that was, again, very one-dimensional. There weren't any dinks. They were hitting the returner serve up the middle, mostly with their forehands.
They also did not miss any serves, basically, and did not miss any returns because these tennis champions, former tennis champions, can get a ball over the net. So if we started with that premise, the point begins, the return goes back, and then they all did come forward. I think Maria and Mac were a little bit further in the transition zone. They weren't as comfortable all the way close up because what happened on the very first point of the match, McEnroe gets up to the non-volley line and he steps in and he just starts falling apart right off the bat. So his temper was already flaring. Maria spent a lot of the time trying to calm him down, which she did a good job of because she had a smile on her face. Steffi had a smile on her face. Now, Agassi had his game face on, but when he was done with that $1 million in their pocket, he had a smile on his face as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, the referee also was from last year, and she was mic'd up. So I think she knew what McEnroe was going to do. And so I think they had their little foray right at the very beginning to set the tone. And honestly, it was a little bit negative at the very, very beginning. But it's in his contract to do that. So that's the product. This is entertainment. This is entertainment. So they are entertainers first, but honestly, they're ex-champions and amazing athletes second and third.
Well, it was also at the Hard Rock Cafe, $1 million prize on the line. There were people in the stands that were tennis fans and pickleball fans and some family members and former tennis players. I did see Jaden Agassi, Andre and Steffi's son, who's 22. And I saw Justin Gimelstob from the Pro Tour days. And you could see that they made some contact with the players. The lights were low. The one disappointing part for me, again, was the way that the court is laid out on a dark gray surface. Maybe it works with the combination of a yellow ball, but I wish they would liven it up and put some color into it. Again, they were all sort of dressed in black, and with the dark court is what I call funeral pickleball. It's just not my style. I like the liveliness of the outdoor pickleball game, which almost has a feel of beach volleyball. When you see what some of the players wear that are playing under the heat in the sunshine, when we get spring and summertime, that's missing for me with this indoor pickleball setting that they had for the Slam 2. But overall, I agree with you, Carrie. It was great fun. Seeing Steffi on the court again. She has so many fans, and she is the most modest, humblest, just trying as hard as she can. She did get almost tagged a few times. She ducked pretty quickly. James Blake was really fast with his paddle, and then he's holding up his hand saying, I can't hit Steffi. She's the best of ever. So Steffi had good reflexes, but wasn't quite expecting that chicken wing forehand coming to her. So she wasn't quite ready for that one.
I agree. Both Steffi and Maria had a tennis player ready position, which was the paddle directly in front of them. And I think if they were just tilted just a little bit to the backhand side, they could have deflected that. But again, I'm not going to argue with any of these, the hands, the reflex and the deflex that they had. Those are world class, and they will always have them. So that was kind of neat to see.
The game kept moving. The referee obviously called the score out loud for them. They had been well coached on, once we hit the serve and return, we're going to dink. So there was lots of dinks, definitely a few speed ups, very few lobs. There were just a couple of smashes that I saw. So they weren't using it off of dink, dink, dink lob. They didn't do that because I think they have respect for each other's overheads. And that might be the difference between some of the rec play that we know about, because again, the least practiced shot in tennis and pickleball is the overhead smash. So at a lower level, they're not as capable of hitting it. And at this higher level of just with the tennis skills that translate, I'd say that the overhead and the lob were sort of missing from the match for me, because I think it's a good combination of just to change it up, especially after they're going for their dinks. Agassi did supposedly hit an early or two. He was off the court. I don't know if he was really up at the net and if he won. There were a couple of missed attempts at some ATPs. The players tried to hit it too soon. So if I were on the court with them, I'd say give it one more count or two more counts and let the ball go wide, and then just sort of float it down the line. It doesn't have to be a fast hit shot. But I think they're ready for that the next time they play. One thing that was missing for me was the eye protection. If you're on the court, those fast paddles, Agassi's paddle, according to Andy Roddick, who was one of the commentators, is one of the fastest. He's been on the other end of his tennis game. And Agassi was standing in the middle of the court half the time. So he was ready to pounce. And I would have been wearing some eye protection. Hopefully that they'll get the memo on that one, because, they are one shot away from a ball hitting off of their partner's paddle or their own paddle, not really even necessarily the ball coming at them from an eye injury. So that one got me a little bit nervous, but I did notice that.
There was one thing about the lob, and I've learned that I'm playing a lot more indoors, and the anatomy of a lob indoors, if there's a ceiling that's 20, 30, 40, 50 feet, and they were in an arena, they were in a concert arena that held 6,000 players or people, you can hit it as high as you want. So they didn't have to just respect that lob or respect the overhead. They could have hit it a little higher. And that's also what they also do when they're pro tennis players, is they hit that skyrocket lob. And I think that's always very exciting for the fans.
Well, and because they can be returned. You think of all those times at the US Open at night, or even Australian Open, where they're running a ball down and they just hit that monster lob and the ball stays in play. And I think the same thing can happen, though they were trying to make it small by playing sort of pickleball style, just close up to the net and all four players together. I think they've had some good coaching, though from the commentators, they said Maria Sharapova's only been playing 6 weeks. And both McEnroe and Sharapova had the tennis crossover step when both of them got called on stepping into the kitchen. And I think Maria was probably just even a little bit surprised, because she's 6'3" and her feet, what size shoe must she wear? At least a 10. And so she doesn't have to be very far from the line, and she's going to step into it. So that I think changes, where instead of having what I'd call the pickleball ready position of the lower athletic stance, wider legs, and less actual movement. Steffi talked about having to unlearn her tennis game, which is hard to do, and the step out and on both directions, so that their forward facing towards where the ball is going to be coming back next. So that footwork, I think, needs to be going away from the tennis and coming into the pickleball world. And I think that could make a big addition for Maria's game for sure. And Mac, I don't know if he has the mindset, as Agassi said when they were done. Once McEnroe stops being angry about what the game is, he'll enjoy it a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny, the comment, and I agree with that. But again, that's his product, and he's very good at it. There's nobody better than Johnny Mac to get mad and argue, right? That's why we tune in. But with Maria, the commentators, both Andy Roddick and the pickleball gal, I can't recall her name right now, they were saying that Maria was learning as she played, and at the end of her time, she had 2 matches. Her stance was way wider than starting, and she wasn't stepping into the kitchen because the wideness of her stance, she was covering that 10 feet of court without any stepping. I mean, she's so long, and her long limbs and her long arms, she did it. So you can learn as you're playing, kind of almost out of necessity.
Well, they did play sort of in the general public area. They had some public court time, and they all got to play in front of different crowds. So it was a little bit of a rehearsal the days beforehand. And I think you're just feeling it out. The ball feels different when you're playing with a hard plastic ball versus the fuzz and felt of a tennis ball. And the strings don't grab onto the ball when it's a wooden paddle or a graphite paddle, whatever. The surface is very different. So we didn't see too much top spin. There was a little bit more of a flat drive. The shorter back swings worked better than the longer strokes that Maria had. And even Mac has what I also consider almost an illegal serve. His racket goes more in a straight pattern back instead of low to high. His paddle goes back, but is like a racket. And so I think that's one of the things that his upward motion on his serve could have probably been challenged. I think that was the case last year too. And I don't know that anybody will ever take him aside and really tell him the real truth about it. Versus Steffi and Andre's facing the net stance. And they both had been coached by probably the same person. And they did very well with adding their opposite hip to get a little bit of power on that. And it is relative. They all can handle fast balls. So I'm not sure exactly how hard those serves were or even how hard the returns were, because they all can handle them. Nobody would do any major underspin. I know that playing in rec play, a lot of people have trouble with the short ball. Steffi ran down one in particular that was great, and then she found herself in the kitchen and ran back out. So there was a lot of good court coverage covering their partners who were maybe going for shots, especially when they were playing with the now the youngest pros to retire, not the group that was the Wimbledon champs, but the doubles specialists, James Blake and Jack Sock. And if you recall, Jack Sock played mixed doubles in his first pickleball tournament with Annalie Waters and won. And so he was asked at the very end, how come you were able to win or do so well in mixed doubles? And he says, it's my partners.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Had nothing but respect for Steffi, saying, I never had the singles careers that any of these players did, but it was just such an honor to be able to play with Steffi in particular. And she was just revered by the crowd. I mean, you could feel it, even through the TV monitors. It just was something special to see. And especially that she looked like she was having fun.
Because when she played, it didn't appear to have fun at the top of the list. It was, I'm going to win, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to put my head down and win, as she did, 22 Grand Slams. But the nice part about it is that we got to see Steffi enjoy what she can do now. And she really did say, and the commentator said, once Steffi got past that uncomfortable, that frustration that the tennis player will have going onto the pickleball court, then she could allow herself to play. And there was also a really nice statement by Jack Sock at the end. He said, this could be a bridge for the tennis player, and into the pickleball. There's no reason to fight about this. This is all a game. It's a sport. Why not? Why not have fun and play?
Well, I think the tennis players are more likely to say that once they've tried it. So if there's any tennis players out there, have you tried pickleball yet? Or are you just resistant? And, did they bring you to watch the match? Did these tennis champions' names bring you to the pickleball Slam 2? Or did you watch Slam 1? So I don't know who our audience is today exactly, but leave a comment in the comment below section so that we can find out who's watching. Are you tennis fans? Are you pickleball fans? Did you watch because of these champions, or did you just happen to be tuning in on ESPN because that's where all the sports is?
Right.
I will say too, in conjunction with what Jack Sock said about bridging between the two games, Agassi said that last year. His comment last year was, pickleball is where old tennis players go to die. Now,
Right.
I'm not so sure if that's true, but you figure his body was pretty beaten up at the end of his career for as long as it was. And Steffi also, she ended up having many injuries and had a long career in spite of that, but she was on the pro circuit by the time she was 13 years old, and matches before that too, because she was always a champion. But Andre says we can play in the sandbox together. So I think that's the call to action, that if we can get both games on board, even if your facility that where you play has tennis and pickleball, or maybe a tennis court lined with pickleball lines, I think we have to be more respectful of each other and say that we can play both of them and not to diss each other. Because I do think both games are going to be here. Tennis isn't going anywhere. It still has quite a few players. I mean, we're talking in the double-digit millions and for both games. And while pickleball is popular now, tennis also went through that phase in the 70s of the tennis boom.
Right.
And that was inspired by the Billie Jean King Bobby Riggs match. If you recall, more people tuned into that because it was the battle of the sexes.
Right.
So this Pickleball Slam 2, I think, can only maybe be outdone if maybe one of the Williams sisters, in particular Serena, came on board next year. I don't know how much more they're going to do, but it looks like it's a popular event. And if Agassi and Steffi come back and find another pair that they want to beat up on, or Maria improves, who knows? McEnroe is always a calling card, just because he's the old face of tennis and the aging population. But he's going to be 65 in the month of February, where we're filming this, 2024. This coming month, and he could still do it. The commentator was making all sorts of claims. Wow, can you believe at his age? And I like to say this is a game for all ages, just like tennis is.
It's a game for all ages, absolutely. And also, Andre said that Steffi and he now get to practice and play together 2 or 3 times a week. And he said, and that's been wonderful. And then we can play with our kids. So yes, that is quite a star-studded family, absolutely. But they're doing just what we're doing. I'm playing with my son, and I'm playing with my sister, and then it's just nephews and nieces, and that's what it is. So we don't have to be Steffi, we don't have to be Andre. We can be who we want to be, and get to play with our family and have fun with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it was really fun to watch Jaden Agassi in the stands cheering. I don't know that in his lifetime he saw both of his parents compete at the level that they were, and here they were being cheered for. And he is a star baseball pitcher for USC. He's had Tommy John surgery, but I saw this one clip once. Agassi was standing like at home plate, and Jaden was in the outfield, and he threw a ball, really, really long throw. And Agassi just put his hand out, and the ball went right into the mitt. And he says he has his mother's genes. So I think he's being very modest about that, but he loves the German engineering comments about Steffi. When she puts her mind to something, that's going to ring true. So I'm so glad that there were fans in the stands that appreciated that moment of just Steffi Graf coming back to be in front of a crowd, because she really retired from the sports world. And though they do a lot of charity work, both of them have foundations. Agassi also has his school in Las Vegas, and they reside in Las Vegas. Though we had our little moment in sharing them in Marin County, where we live, they did have a home once upon a time in Tiburon. And everyone in the world, in our tennis world, loved to come up to me. I don't know if you ever saw them in person, Carrie, but they were at a local park close to where you used to live.
Right.
And people say, have you seen Andre and Steffi? And I said, no, I haven't. And then one day I'm driving to the local theater to watch a play. And I'm driving into downtown and around a corner. And I said, stop the car. I was in the back seat. I jump out. Steffi was having coffee. This was many years ago now, because Jaden was a baby in a carry-on kind of thing, a little hooded covering him. And she was having coffee at 7:30 in the evening. And that particular night, because I know the schedule, Andre was playing down in San Jose.
Right.
Hour and a half away from where we were. And she just was sitting there with a friend having coffee. And I had to get out and I didn't bother her, but I walked around the corner. Yep, got a close look. It was her. I went back in the car and said, okay, I finally had my Steffi sighting in Marin County. And, she just was Steffi. And so all I can say is that Steffi playing pickleball is probably one of the highlights for me this year of 2024 so far. I was really looking forward to it, and had it a little bit delayed because the power went out again in Marin County. We've had that big storm in California, and I had no electricity and I couldn't watch the match. But luckily I taped it early in the morning. I set the tape and watched it the next evening. And I did find it on Twitter, was in a conversation with somebody who was doing some commentary on the match, and at least knew what the scores were and what I imagined it looked like. It was better in person than listening to it. But anyway, that was really exciting for me.
It's very exciting. So what I gather from the pros that were on the tennis pros that were on the pickleball court is they went back to what they knew how to do. It wasn't one dimensional, but they know how to hit their ground strokes. They know how to follow the ball to an advantage or an offensive place, which is the net or the non-volley zone. And then they start the point. And that's it. That can't be underscored. You get your serve in and you get your return a serve in, then you get to play the rest of the point. Then you get to invent anything you'd like to. But if you don't get your serve in and you don't get the returner serve in, you lose the point. So it's that sort of simplicity to a game. That's really it. It's a very simple game, and then we can have all the fun, all the earnies, and the around the post and the tweeners. That's all gravy. But serve in and return in. No matter what game you're playing, you're gonna win when you do those things.
Well, and they know how to compete. And any of us playing in front of that many people would be a little bit nervous. Steffi claimed she was nervous at the beginning, but then after she got into it, I think she could focus, because again, that's what tennis champions do. Having all of them had won Wimbledon. Can you imagine? And between them, what was the amount of Grand Slam titles? It was something in the 40s. Steffi has 22 alone. Yeah. And as Agassi said, he has the second most in his family, because had racked it up so many times.
At least 3 or 4 gold medalists on the court. I mean, the Olympians, they're all Olympians from their country. So, like you said, Ann, they know how to compete. They know how to be composed when they're doing something. But this was out of their realm of expertise, and that's also really a fun thing to do, is to be able to learn something that you're not quite comfortable doing, that you really don't know what to do.
Well, and Steffi said that too. It's fun learning a new game. I think Andre also learning a new game that you have to try to figure out what are the differences. There's a lot of carryover for tennis players of shot making and so forth, and you can keep score and know how to play a game and call a line and all of that. And I think there were very fair line calls. Maria gave a couple of really nice calls. So I would definitely say that most improved from last year was Agassi. I think most improved during the evening was Sharapova. And I think just the biggest surprise and the top for me was Steffi. Now Mac is Mac, and you know we've watched him for so many years that it sort of gets a little old sometimes. But now welcome to our world if you're coming from pickleball and watching him for the first time. There were a number of pickleball players on Twitter and some of the social media saying that they were excited to watch Steffi because Steffi was one of their favorites growing up when they were tennis players. Let's face it, there are a lot of pickleball players that come from tennis. And if they didn't, they can at least appreciate her from the sports world as far as all that she won. She was such a champion.
All right.
So I'm excited to see what next year holds, if they're going to continue or if there will become another level of a circuit for former tennis champions that they can go play against each other. I think they'd feel safe, or maybe they'll branch out and start playing in some of these senior pro events. All but Sharapova are seniors. Sharapova is not quite there yet, unless she goes into the over 30s, but I don't think that counts yet. She's still too newly retired. She hasn't even made it into the to the Hall of Fame yet because I think she hasn't retired long enough. I don't know if it's been 5 years yet from when she stopped playing, but I'm sure we will see her there too because she also had a stellar career.
Absolutely. All right.
So I think it was a good recap. We'll have in the description below, I'll put the scores of the matches. It was a little bit too much to have to read all those numbers, but I'll have that in the bottom. And also, please leave some comments about what you thought about the Pickleball Slam. If you watched it or if you've caught a replay, it's somewhere online. I know there's a lot of different highlights floating around. And please click like and subscribe. We'd love to have you as a regular viewer of the Z Sisters Pickleball. This is one of our, we call podcasts, even though it's a video podcast, because we just love chatting about certain topics. And you'll see us back with some more commentary in the future.
All right. All right, Ann. It's always fun to talk about our champs and the new game that we're embracing and learning how to play and laugh and have fun with. So next time.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye.